Kenobi. Perhaps one of the most recognizable and memeable one-liners in the entire Star Wars franchise.
Kenobi. Kenobi. Kenobi.
In that one word is encompassed one man's absolute, single-minded obsession with another. And that obsession sparked a rivalry that spanned 7 seasons across 2 series. It's no secret that Maul's one goal in life was to cause as much pain to Obi-Wan Kenobi as he possibly could. And while that allows for quite a bit of comedic effect at times, mostly it shows the true depth of Maul's piecemeal sanity. In today's video, we'll explore the nature of Maul's obsession and expose what it truly meant.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
The core concept of Maul's character can be summed up as lust for revenge. In The Phantom Menace, when he first appeared, he managed to kill Qui-Gon Jinn, but was immediately bisected by his apprentice, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Although Maul got very little screen time in Episode 1, he became somewhat of a main character in Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, and in both series, he has 2 main goals: establishing himself as a powerful figure and getting revenge on Obi-Wan. Maul's attempts to hurt Obi-Wan aren't just limited to trying to kill him. Perhaps his most effective blow against the Jedi Master was when he murdered Duchess Satine Kryze in front of him in the throne room of Mandalore. Maul could have chosen to kill Obi-Wan in that moment, but instead of taking his life, he instead chose to kill someone Obi-Wan clearly held dear to his heart. What that shows us is that Maul's revenge wasn't just about killing him, but about causing him the most amount of pain and suffering that he could before he inevitably killed him. In a previous video, we talked about how Darth Sidious raised Maul to believe himself a Sith Lord of great power. Sidious had isolated Maul and trained him in the ways of a Sith assassin, but he had limited Maul's training to the bare minimum required for him to function as an assassin. He never trained Maul in politics or the ways of the galaxy, nor in many aspects of the Force. At the same time, the way he had isolated the young Zabrak allowed Sidious to position himself as the only real figure in Maul's life. A harsh, unforgiving figure, but one that promised him power. Together, Sidious promised, he and Maul would rule the galaxy as master and apprentice, and that promise is likely what got Maul through the brutal, almost unsurvivable training he was subjected to. What we're getting at is that at the time of Episode 1, when Maul first appears, he was making his debut in the galaxy expecting to seize it as the Sith apprentice to the Dark Lord himself and bring the Jedi to their knees. What he got instead was bisected and thrown down a chute, after which he somehow crawled out and got to a dumpster heap of a planet where he lived as an insane half-man, half-metal spider for many years. In that instant, in Maul's mind, Obi-Wan didn't just take his legs from him, but also the future he deserved, the future in which he was a powerful Sith Lord in his rightful place at his master's side. A future he had worked so hard for, and now had been taken away from him forever. And the only way out was revenge. Throughout his appearances in the Clone Wars and Rebels, Maul did what he could to reclaim that future for himself. With his brother, Savage Opress, he put together the Shadow Collective and tried to create a corner of the galaxy where he would have absolute power, something like a smaller scale of what Sidious had promised him. Simultaneously, he did what he could to get revenge on Kenobi, whether that was killing Satine, trying to kill Obi-Wan, or trying to corrupt Ezra Bridger to find him after the Republic fell. To an external observer, Maul was a man on a mission, and that mission was fueled by his rage. And we're here to disagree with that statement. The truth is, revenge is rarely a motive driven by anger. In many cases, what pushes people to enact fantasies of revenge is fear, often fear that whatever happened to them in the past would happen to them again. Revenge is an action intended to neutralize one's aggressor. If you take your revenge, not only does it mean that you're now stronger than the person that hurt you, it also means that you can make sure that person never hurts you again. In the Clone Wars, What motivated Maul to gather the Shadow Collective was fear. Fear of being powerless. What motivated him to kill Obi-Wan was the need to prove he was now stronger than the person who had taken his future away from him. But that's just the surface of it all. Because what Maul feared more than anything wasn't Obi-Wan, but Darth Sidious himself. You see, while Sidious might have skipped several steps in Maul's training, the Zabrak was an incredibly intelligent man. One of the things that shines brightest in Maul's character is his cunning and perceptiveness. Once Savage Opress had helped the Night Sisters heal his mind, there's no way Maul didn't realize the truth. Sidious had never intended him to be his Sith apprentice. Dooku was already being groomed as his successor, and had Obi-Wan not taken him out on Naboo, Sidious would have likely killed him himself, and he wouldn't have miraculously survived that. The real reason Maul began forming the Shadow Collective was because he knew of Palpatine's true identity, and he knew the Republic's time was coming rapidly to an end. By forming the Shadow Collective, Maul had hoped to create a safe space where the accumulated forces of the galactic underworld would have made him untouchable once Palpatine pulled the final strings in the Clone Wars puppet show. We know, of course, that Sidious saw this and immediately reacted to Maul's growing threat by traveling there, killing Savage Opress, and torturing Maul thoroughly. He left him alive, however, because Sidious was a smart cookie and knew that Maul would cause more trouble for the Jedi than for himself. In that fight, Maul isn't the coldly calculated opponent we see in every duel he has with Obi-Wan. When facing the Jedi, Maul seems focused and calm, but when facing Sidious, he was terrified.
Have mercy. Please, please.
There is no mercy. Do not worry. I'm not going to kill you. I have other uses for you.
At the end of the day, Maul knew the very harsh reality of his situation all too well. The one who had really cost him his future wasn't Obi-Wan, but Darth Sidious himself. At the same time, he was well aware that he wasn't even remotely strong, smart, or powerful enough to take on Sidious. Sidious was multiple steps ahead of every single player in the galaxy, and if Maul had ever truly tried to challenge him, he would have been crushed like an ant. And Maul knew it. The Shadow Collector was an attempt to create some protection around him, but even that was child's play for Sidious. Remember what we said earlier about revenge. Maul sought revenge to make himself feel better, not worse. If he tried to take on Sidious, he would have only increased his feelings of helplessness. That's why he hyper-fixated on Obi-Wan instead. A man he could reasonably hold accountable for his fate, even if he knew better. Making Obi-Wan his nemesis was the one way Maul could truly move forward. It gave him something to hold on to, even when everything else fell away. It gave him a way of framing his continued existence. He had a goal, and when he accomplished it, he would prove he was strong. What helped even more is that Obi-Wan never thought of Maul as his nemesis in return. Yes, he was a threat, and Obi-Wan recognized it. However, he never returned the feelings of hatred Maul had for him. Even when Maul killed Satine, Obi-Wan was able to, there is no emotion, there is peace, his way out of the clusterfuck of emotions that would have followed. That was perfect for Maul. If he'd picked an enemy that wanted to get him as much as Maul wanted to get them, it likely wouldn't have ended in his favor, or, conversely, it would have ended too quickly, and Maul would have had to find someone else to strive for once he'd killed them. Obi-Wan was perfect in every way. For over a decade, they played Loth, Cat, and Womp Rat, but in the end, Rebels gives us the climax of this decades-long rivalry. On a dusty world with twin suns, Maul finally tracks the elderly Obi-Wan down, and this is his chance. The duel is over in an instant. With almost no sound, Maul collapses, and Obi-Wan catches him and lowers him to the ground, almost tenderly. Obi-Wan holds him, and in Maul's last moments, there is no longer any pretense. There was never any rivalry. There was only a man hurting and scared, and the Jedi who had grown wise enough to see past the mask of hatred into Maul's soul. With that one promise, Maul died in peace. His true revenge had never been possible, and he had always known that. But beside the man who had suffered just as much loss because of Sidious, he could find peace knowing they would both be avenged one day. At the end of the day, we're all victims of what we fear. It's up to us to find healthy ways of moving forward with our lives without deluding ourselves. Maul did the best he could given the hand he had been dealt, and we hold true to this day that he was as much of a victim as anyone else in the puppet wars that were the Clone Wars. But what do you think? Was he truly the villain? Or was he just another man trying to live a life he could tolerate? Feel free to let us know in the comment section below.